Okay, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to a specially organised by popular demand Talent Agenda Series webinar set up live on site at the Talent Agenda Series conference in Lagos and featuring Innocent Oseghe, who has two hats, Chartered Institute of Personnel Management in Nigeria and also HCP as well. So this session was so popular we had to finish for time reasons when we were in Lagos, but we thought we must come back and we must hear the rest of what Innocent has to say and provide a platform for all the questions. So Innocent's on the line now and he's going to drive the presentation, but just before he does, in terms of admin, you'll see on the right hand side of your screens you've got a question panel, and if you have any questions at any stage during the webinar, if you type your question in there and submit it, then when Innocent's ready to take questions, I will refer them across to him and he'll be able to address them for the whole audience. So without further ado, let's get the show on the road and hand over to Innocent. Welcome, Innocent, and it's a pleasure to be speaking with you again.
Yeah, thank you very much, Alex. I'm quite delighted to be here again today. I also want to welcome everyone back on the platform. We're going to be talking about leadership pipeline development, and I'll try as much as possible to just summarize a few of the issues that we covered a bit extensively during the Talent Agenda Conference. Then I'll go into the areas that we didn't have enough time to cover. Are we satisfied with that model? Are we okay with that model? Can I go on?
That's perfect. From our side, let's go.
Okay. So good afternoon again, ladies and gentlemen. In terms of summary, we said the other time that there is a bit of crisis in the world of work today, and I said the CEOs are failing sooner, falling harder, leaving their companies in turmoil. And I said that at all levels, companies are short on the quality and quantity of leaders they need. At least 50% of the people in leadership positions today, they are operating at competency levels far below their assigned level in most organizations. And I said as a result, they not only become ineffective, but the people they manage are also negatively impacted as well. And I said today's business competes on two critical competencies: intellectual capital and financial capital. And I said the intellectual capital resides in employees at all levels within the organization, but it takes strong leadership to fully develop and to enable them. And unfortunately, most companies still most companies still over-rely on meeting their current and future leadership needs by going after expensive stars who are frequently recruited away. And therefore, we need to begin to look at leadership pipeline in today's organizations a bit differently. At the end of today, you will be able to better clarify what you have in place right now within your own organizations. And you'll also be able to ask yourself a few questions. How do I handle leadership development going forward within our system? So the session's objective this afternoon is to enable you develop a leadership pipeline development framework for your organization, identify, retain, develop high leadership potentials for your organization, as well as how you can effectively leverage GCC's, CIPM and HCP's services to enhance your leadership pipeline development efforts. And in terms of outline, I will just quickly provide summaries on where we started last week, and I'll dive in straight into talking about what methods for identification, what methods for retention and development processes, and what are the instructional approach for building healthy leadership pipelines. Well, The last time we had a discussion, I showed us this slide, which helps us see that at different leadership passages in organizations, there is need for new skills requirements, new time applications, as well as new work values needs to be shared by individuals and at different leadership passages. When we are moving from managing self to managing others, that is the first leadership passage. From moving from a manager to a functional manager, that's another leadership passage. The third leadership passage is when we're moving from managing others to managing, functional managers. And we have the fourth one that happens when you're a functional manager and you move into the role of business manager, which in this case is expected to be the managing director. And we also talked about when you're moving from being a business manager to a group manager and finally to enterprise managers. Each of these leadership passage poses its own challenge, and it requires acquisition of new skills requirements, new time applications, as well as new work values. For instance, for an individual that is just managing himself, which is self-management, in terms of skills requirements, what you see on the screen are the key skill requirements. How do they apply their time? And what are the work values that are critical to an individual at this level? See, he would concern himself more of technical proficiency skills, product knowledge, doing assigned work within given time frame, team play, collaborating with others, using company tools and processes and procedures. And in terms of application, is daily discipline, planning so that work is completed on time, and of course, content quality and reliability. And the work values is accepting company values, adopting professional standards, collaborating with others, and of course, getting getting himself ready through personal proficiency are the key skills requirements at this level. Now, if we go into looking at the next leadership passage, which is managing self to managing others, you can also see what the skill requirements are: planning work, job design, selecting people. So at this leadership passage, when one moves from managing self to managing others, actually we should start exposing them to how to select people, delegation, goal setting, performance monitoring, measuring the work of others, coaching and feedback, reward and motivation, communication, climate setting, trust, building trust with team members, direct boss, suppliers, customers, acquisition of resources, customer service, and how do they apply their time at this level, planning, making time available for subordinates physically and emotionally, setting priorities for the team, communication time with others, customers. This is how they should be spending their time. And you can also see on the far right what the work values ought to be at this level. We talked about it during the conference, and I don't think I need to spend too much time around this anymore. Now, managing others to managing managers, you can see what the skills requirements should be. The allocation of time, what do they allocate their time doing? At this stage, they should be spending more of their time coaching people. And of course, what are the work values? Divesting themselves from individual work, thinking in terms of thinking in terms of the business. Holding first-line managers accountable for managerial work rather than to be working alone. They must derive joy from managing people. And of course, they must view coaching as mission critical. These are critical things that must be done at this level. And we also talked about this passage where one is moving from managing managers to functional managers. These are new sets of skills in terms of skills description, how they apply their time, and work values. Now, when we move from this and we move from functional managers to business managers, you can see what the skills requirements ought to be. Completely different from the leadership passage before this level. Now, why am I taking you through this? And this is, for instance, when we're talking about from being a business manager, which is MDCO, to become a group manager. You can see what the skill set ought to be. Developing strategy, getting business managers to operate at peak level, proficiency at evaluating strategy, learning to ask the right questions, identifying and developing new business managers, portfolio strategy skills, and that. And you see what they should spend their time on: thinking time, strategic networking, visiting various businesses, and that is what it ought to be. See, and see what their work values ought to be. Note that for small and medium-scale enterprises who don't have group managers, the CEO usually undertakes the group manager's responsibility, and that's why for him, the CEO must continue to build his skills on a continuous basis because he's wearing several hats at the same time. Now, what is the implication of this? I will skip this because I talked about it. This is from a group manager to an enterprise manager. And what are the implications of this? It simply means that for leadership passage development, we must identify the various leadership passages and ensure that the individuals that have been identified for those roles were assessed against those competencies in terms of competencies, how they spend their time, what are their value system at that point in time. Why do we need to invest in what I've just talked about right now? When you invest in the proper leadership pipeline development process, it will help you avoid situations where people just skip leadership passages and work in positions where they lack the critical skill set. The second thing is that people will continue to cling to behaviors and attitudes that made them to be successful in the past, but are inappropriate for their current positions. I don't know whether you observed situations where, for instance, a departmental head keeps struggling for work or doing the work of a functional manager, or a functional manager doing the work of just a middle-level manager. Now, because an individual has succeeded in the past for demonstrating certain behaviors, sometimes it just appears to them that for them to succeed in their new roles, they must continue to go ahead with those behaviors. But in reality, it's not correct. Now, it also helps you to avoid situations where leaders are given sufficient opportunities to develop through job of sufficient complexity, experience, and challenges that are designed to keep their skills and to help broaden their values. Now, there are certain development initiatives or requirements that just putting an individual in a training school, in a training room, cannot enable an individual to acquire. The experience is required. The job situation is required. And that's why we need to be serious about our leadership pipeline framework. It also helps to prevent premature promotions of in-house people or even frenetic hiring of outside talent. I mean, when this now becomes the norm rather than deliberate development of talent, it will continue to limit the contribution of leaders at all levels within your organizations. And this will keep leading to overclogging of the system with incompetent leaders, and there will be so much frustration in the system that will keep leading to the organization may just continue to bleed, and you know the amount of money that you lose when you continue to lose critical talent within organizations. At this stage, at this stage, does anybody have any questions, or can I just move on?
I think it's a good time to just, anybody who's got some questions, start prompting them on the system, and then we can read them out as and when. So if you have questions, if you're starting to think about questions, please start submitting them now. And for now, I think we continue with the presentation and wait until we get some questions.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. That's fine. So the bottom line is that we just need to have a proper framework within which we develop, we identify leaders, and we begin to develop them. Coaching of leaders and providing basic training programs alone will not solve your leadership pipeline challenge. See, there has to be a process that will enable them gain the skill, apply the time, what they must be doing during how they should engage their time, and the kind of values that they must begin to demonstrate at the various levels. So we then need to be aware of the critical leadership passages, identify critical positions as well as the candidates very early, assess competence and performance at every stage, plan leadership development in a way that addresses the unique challenges of each passage, and we also need to provide candidates with growth assignments, ongoing useful feedback, adequate coaching and mentoring support, which lots of time from experience I've seen that it doesn't happen very well within most organizations. So let me just quickly show succession planning approaches in many organizations follow this model: identifying future service needs, identifying key positions and competencies, selecting high potential candidates for the key positions, select training and development activities, implement training and development activities, monitor and evaluation. Ladies and gentlemen, when the second one, which is identifying key positions, are not done very well and well profiled, every other thing you do in this system will just be a waste of time. The second one, which is identifying key positions and competencies, critical, and of course selecting high potential candidates, also critical. Sometimes when the key positions have been identified, the jobs are not properly profiled. So, and of course, the other thing is selecting high potential candidates has also become a big challenge within organizations. One, because of the politics that sometimes, most time associated with it, because of, people, line managers want to put forward people who cover their back. All manner of issues, affect selecting high potential candidates. But there is something there's a framework HR can put in place to help the organizations and to help support the line managers in what they are doing. And I will just quickly take us through what HR needs to actually be doing. But before I talk about that, I would like to re-clarify what we talked about the last time, the difference between high performance employees and high potential employees. High performance employees are not, they are not necessarily high potential employees. They are good at what they are doing and performing their job roles. But the high potential employees are those that have demonstrated measurable skills and abilities and behaviors and values beyond their current job levels. So by the time you are looking for leadership pipeline candidates, you need to be extremely careful, and you need to manage the line managers very, very creatively in such a way that a line manager would not be selling to you a high performance employee who is not necessarily a high potential employee. So we need to be careful about that. Now, there are 4 approaches to identifying high potential candidates for leadership pipeline development purposes. The first one is the performance and potentials assessments. Like I said the other day, competency-bound approach, psychometrics assessments, and also looking at people's career life stage. And I will quickly talk about each of them very, very briefly. I covered the first one extensively during the conference, so I will just do a summary of that and others. Now, about using the performance potential assessments, it's ascertaining the performance of individuals at least for the past 3 years, then determining their potentials for the past 3 years, performing background analysis on them, and then selecting appropriate measures. But in ascertaining performance, what do we do? Now, I have just this to sort of show how I'm using the 9-box tool to determine performance ratings. I know we all have different rating scales, but when your rating does not take into consideration the demonstration of skills and behaviors, then you need to see if your rating skills currently is the right thing, or you need to moderate it. Now, for leadership pipeline development purposes, you need those who are performing very well, high performance. You also need those who are demonstrating the appropriate skills and behaviors and values. And you can see how I've numbered each box right now. When the skills and behaviors are high and the performance results is high, that is exceptional performance. Now, when the performance is high, but the demonstration of skills and values, it's medium. It's a D, which is very good. While when an individual is performing very high, performance is very high, but the skills and behaviors and values are very low, it's moderate. It's in most organizations, performance results for this individual, once he's performing very high, is an E. And this individual will erode the value of the organization in the long run. So this, for instance, somebody who is in this box is not, even though his performance is very high, may not be a high potential, because in terms of values and behaviors, is low. Now, this guy in box 5 is a balancer. Now, anyone whose performance is low and skills and behaviors are high, this is A, which is box 9. Sometimes, because an individual is demonstrating skills and behaviors, sometimes organizations says, okay, if there are extenuating factors that is preventing performance from going to box 8 and all that, okay, they can say, we can afford to give a C. But in most organizations, when the values and behaviors are low, it doesn't go beyond a B, even if you are the one bringing all the, even if you are the one bringing all the financials. And this is how a lot of organizations have been able to help to ensure that they are building individuals who have respect for their values, and of course they are also demonstrating performance. Now, for GE, for instance, this is the GE's space. You can see this is their performance. This is performance for GE. Needs development, consistently meets expectation, exceeds expectation. And you can see on this, along this line, we have values. Now, those that make their management target list are those that are performing at this level. Exceeds expectation, and of course also exceeds expectation in terms of performance, as well as exceed expectation in terms of values. And these are the people that they then begin to look at very closely. But however, we still need to determine their potentials. This is just performance. Performance is assessed using both the performance goals and demonstration of values. And this is what I recommend going forward. Now, If we look at the potential assessment, these are also the rating descriptions. Every year, the line managers should be trained to be able to identify and be able to assess and rate potential candidates along these descriptions. Not well placed. For a not well placed candidate, the position holder is not in the right job. The individual should be assigned to maybe a different position within the same or different organization, department, or unit, similar positions within a different organization, position outside the company, complete outplacement. Now, there are people, the people that they would assess as well placed are those position holders who are well, they are performing well in their current positions. Their job scope may increase. They may make horizontal moves, but they are unlikely to make major promotional moves. These are the people we refer to as well placed. Now, we have the growth potentials. This one, they have the potential for advancement to significantly higher level of responsibility. And those that are assessed as promotables are those that can assume the position now, meaning that they've been ready, but the position has not become available. So they are called promotables. And the last but not the least are those who, not applicable potentials cannot be assessed now due to recent appointments. Now, the line manager must be trained to be able to say at the beginning of the day, you tell us the performance, and of course, you also let us know what your assessment of the potential is. And this is what we do in here. Now, once these two are put together, what you then do is to fit them into what we call the Human Resource Performance Potentials Portfolios, HR3P. This is the metrics for HR3P. Yeah, now I've listed all this as box 1. You can see not well placed and performance is inadequate is box 1. Moderate performance but not well placed is box 2. The performance is good but is not well placed, box 3. Box very good but is not well placed, excellent and not well placed. These people in box 4 and box 5 may actually be doing a job that is far below their, maybe they've even been underemployed. There are some background analysis that needs to happen here. Now look at this, well placed for these candidates. Now, yeah, 7 candidates in box 7, 8, 9, and 10. There is need to do some background analysis. Now, the mistakes that a lot of organizations make is that for candidates who are very good and excellent, whether they are not well placed, they just begin to consider them for high potential candidates. For high potential, they want to move them into the leadership pipelines. It's a big mistake. Now, for candidates that can be considered for your leadership pipeline are candidates who are growth potentials. These boxes, promotable, these boxes. We must always be watching out for these guys. The organization must keep talking to them. There must be a definite development program in place for these guys, particularly those who are promotable. You must constantly be having engagements with them to be able to retain them, because these guys, at every point in time, they are being spoken to by headhunters. If they are dissatisfied, they will leave the organization. Remember that they are high performance, their visibility in the marketplace is very high. So you need to manage this box, particularly this box. You need to manage this box very, very creatively. So this then identifies those that may be exposed to the assessment and development center exercise. Then what we then ask all the line managers to do is that after they've identified people at this level, then they also you've had a discussion with them, they've identified people for this level. We then take everyone that is identified into an assessment center, independent assessment centers and development centers, to enable external assessors actually assess them and to see whether there are errors in what line in the information that the line managers has given concerning them. That's why you may need to actually ask, let them send identified potentials to a development center where their line managers would not be involved in assessing them, part of the assessment. And this will help to begin to bring a lot of objectivity into what the organization is doing. We have had to organize development centers and assessment centers for some organizations where we've had to advise the organizations to take certain people off their leadership pipeline because they were demonstrating very low competencies during the development centers and the assessment centers. So there is a need to do that as we go on. Now, the real damage is done when high-performing employees are promoted to managerial or leadership roles for your key positions. And when they become uncomfortable and they begin to struggle, it will result in a high level of anxiety and they will begin to leave. And studies have shown that employee turnover can cost companies lots of money in terms of annual profit. For instance, the financial impact on losing significant number of high potential employees, particularly Generation X and Y people, they have been identified. I mean, they can be very exponential. Those that you have identified as a future leader, because when this type of managers are managing them, you will see that they become restless in the system and you begin to lose great talent in your organization. So that's why we need to be extremely careful. Now, for key positions that you pick in organizations, like I said the other time, 10 to 15% of job listings in your organization are for key positions. The remaining 85% are for other positions that you can actually move people into. But you must be careful how you move people on the type of people that you move into your key positions. Your key positions are those positions that if you don't have the right person manning them at any point in time, the organization will be in deep problem. Yeah. So you can use other positions to move people, but only your high potentials should be moved into your key positions. And I said there about 15 to 20%, sorry, about 10 to 15% of jobs in any organization. Let's quickly take a look at the case study of GE, how GE has been able to do theirs. Performance and overall values is what determines overall rating in GE. And of course, one of the other things they do is that in terms of values, these were GE's values. They are good values: external focus, clear thinking, imagination and courage, inclusiveness and expertise. And you will see that for GE, this must be mastered by everyone in every leadership passage. See, every leadership passage has proficiency level that the individuals must demonstrate. So when we are assessing them for these levels, we assess them at that proficiency level. Now they have the learning and do. If you look at the right-hand side, this side, you can see the levels, learning and do. We have the master and guide, and we also have what we call shaping people. This runs within the organization. Now, each of these proficiency levels are tied to the various leadership passages. Now, these values are sacrosanct. You cannot, every leader in the system who is not demonstrating this will not be moved to the next level. It's as clear and it's as rigorous as that. Why? Because this is what defines the future of the organization. And it's also psychological. When people know what the organization is looking for, psychologically, it will begin to force people to begin to behave and to begin to demonstrate those values. And as they keep demonstrating those values, they'll be able to get their work done well at their various leadership passages. And that's why it's important. Very, very important. So we need to learn we need to then create this in our competency framework system as we begin to define the leadership passages and how you expect people to be behaving as they go on. So I'm just repeating this again as a recap. So at the end of the day, their best players are those that are exceeding performance, exceeding expectations in terms of performance, as well as exceeding performance in terms of exceeding expectation in terms of values. Anything you define is what people would give back to you. If they know that this is what will make them move within the organizations, everybody would fall in line, and you will see that you then have leaders in the system that are fully demonstrating the kind of values that will help them to be able to do what they need to do, to be able to do their jobs more effectively. And that's why I'm just taking us through this. The second approach to selecting people is using the competency framework, competency bound approach. Here, people are providing with aiming points and an understanding of what they need to be able to reach them. And this then requires that you should have very clear-cut competency framework. For some environments, when this is a sample leadership pipeline competency framework, and of course you can see that we have broken this. For those that are going to be able to lead your business into the future, they need to have good level of general business and leadership competencies, functional competencies. This is given, and of course the right behavioral competencies. And you can see what the general business competencies should be. At least they should be able to demonstrate this at different proficiency levels. You can see the technical understanding of the industry is very, very important. What we found out in some of the assessment centers that we've run for organizations is that a lot of them have they are strong in the technical areas, but they are weak in micro and macroeconomic knowledge of the environment, as well as industry knowledge comes across as low. In this area, the greatest challenge we see in people that are brought forward for leadership pipeline development pipelines is this area. Financial acumen is very weak. Commercial acumen is very weak for those who are not in sales. For you to be able to take decisions in the future and do your job, these competencies must be in place. However, don't forget that we also have behavioral in there: teamwork, interpersonal skills, professionalism, personal accountability, general aptitude, written and oral communications, professional outlook, energy, drive, and passion. But please, the framework will depend on the specific leadership passage that you are looking at and what is important at that level. So I've just shown this as an example to you so that you can see how frameworks can be put together, which must cover functional, general business, and of course behavioral. Very, very important. So I come to disciple using psychometrics to assist in your doing some pre-assessments of candidates. We have the general aptitude. They need to have the right aptitude. Personality profiling is there. You need also begin to assess what may probably derail an individual. And you can get that through psychometrics, and you can provide that feedback on time to the individuals. Through psychometrics, you can also know the real motives and values of individuals and see whether those values motives and values are in sync with they are in sync with the values of the organization. Like I said the other time, the people in your leadership pipeline must be those that are demonstrating your values. And of course, we also check for high potential assessment and career anchor assessment. In terms of career anchor, there are 8 career anchors. What do I mean by career anchor? Career anchors actually, the career anchor talks about how an individual is naturally configured and the kind of things that he will enjoy doing, and the kind of things that if it is not available in a job role, you may actually lose that individual. So we have those that are very strong in technical and functional competence. They don't want to do any job where they will not be able to use their technical and functional competence. So for those that you are progressing for departmental heads and all that, you must be sure that this is what is driving their career decisions. There are those for general managerial competencies. There are those that the only thing they are looking for in a work that makes them very satisfied is autonomy and independence. So if the job role that you are progressing them for doesn't have some level of autonomy and independence, they will become dissatisfied at the end of the day, and you may then lose them. There are some security and independence is what is driving their career, for instance. So if the job doesn't have relative level of security and independence, it may become challenging for them. Some is entrepreneurial creativity. Service and dedication to a cause is another career anchor. Some, if the job doesn't have challenge, they are not motivated. And there are some that are driven by lifestyle, want to balance every aspect of their life. For an MD, for people that you are progressing for an MD, for instance, there will be people that are already their career, they are anchored around general managerial competencies, some autonomy, entrepreneurial creativity, challenge. For instance, now you want to ask somebody to go and open a new market, say go and become a marketing director, and you are preparing him for a marketing director's position, and you then find out that this guy's career anchor is all around security and independence. See, it's all around, for instance, lifestyle. Then you need to be careful to be sure that whether the job you want to move this individual to, or you are preparing this individual to, would actually be something that would be satisfactory to him at the long run and will challenge him to be able to do well. So that's using career anchor assessment in terms of psychometrics. But I will tell you that, please, for psychometrics, you don't use it as a primary source of information. It's always used as a secondary source of information. You need to take them through, you need to revalidate whatever any psychometric tool is telling you before you can begin to run. For instance, now you need to have conversations with them to be able to determine their career anchors. You run the assessments, then what the assessment is bringing out, you also have a conversation to confirm what the psychometric is saying about them. We once lost an individual. She was the marketing director in one of the subsidiaries of the organization I worked for before. Now, based on sufficient planning, it was based on sufficient planning that has been in place, she was put up to become the managing director in another region. And she said that she doesn't want to take on a managing director's role. She said she's just satisfied being a marketing director. That she cannot, she doesn't. But the organization said someone else has been identified for your role, therefore you must accept the MD's role or nothing. And she had to resign her appointment. So she doesn't want an MD role because she's not just configured for an MD role. See, so we need to take this into consideration, even if people are not saying this, particularly in this part of the world. So career anchor is important. You may need to add it to your assessment tools to enable you check out people. Now, the last assessment area you may need to look at is their career life stages: establishment phase, advancement phase, maintenance phase, and withdrawal phase. What phase of life is this individual at this point in time? Now, what we are preparing him for? What are his career triggers right now? Of course, based on this, what I'm showing you right now, you will know that early adulthood is more of establishment phase. People are quite motivated. They want training. Adulthood is advancement. Middle adulthood, maintenance and maturity. That's what happens from 45, 50 to 60 is a withdrawal. 60 is withdrawal stage. Now, by the time you begin to pick people for the roles in the future, you want to check what are their interests at these various stages in their life. Have the conversations with them to be able to see and know whether the roles we are picking them for aligns with their interest at this career phase, at this phase of their career. See, it's very, very important. So that is the fourth one that I've talked about. So let me just quickly recap again. Identify high potential candidates. You need to check their performance and potential, do performance and potentials assessments. You need to do your competency band, use competency band approach, which simply means you need to have your competency framework well defined. You need to use psychometrics. You need to check their career life stage. The outcome of this report, it's a report that will integrate the outcome of all these assessments into one single document, and a report which becomes useful. Now, when you put together an assessment center, part of these activities that would help you to be able to see the demonstration of these competencies are things around the business case, group discussion, individual oral presentation based on the case study, client meeting for roles that are client-facing, or stakeholder meeting for roles that are not client-facing. You may also want to do a team role play, competency-based interviews, psychometrics, and of course, when you use a development center, that is a development center, there is need to provide post-exercise feedback session almost immediately after every activity. But if you are doing an assessment center we report is yes or a no. But in the development center, to provide feedback, let them know areas they need to work on, so that when it is time to ascend the role, it's clear whether the individual has the competencies or he doesn't have the competencies. But when it is now time to ascend the role, then you send the person back into an assessment center to be able to determine whether a yes or a no. So the typical report will show the strength of the individual, areas of development, and recommended learning intervention. That would be the outcome of the assessment center for your. So at the end of the assessment center, some people will drop out of your pipeline. Then you then ask the line managers to represent individuals in their units that may fit into the critical roles that are supposed to be in their department. So every year people come into the leadership pipeline, and every year people leave the leadership pipeline. What sustains an individual in the leadership pipeline is performance and potentials assessment year on. Every year. Every 6 months, leadership is supposed to come together to review the state of its leadership pipeline. See, now, after we've done the identification and assessment and put people in there, now the leadership pipeline development process will therefore be analyze the needs, develop the blueprint, plan the implementation, implement the plans, and of course, monitor performance improvements on an ongoing basis. In terms of analyzing the needs, at this stage, we need to identify the performance issues with the candidates, clarify high performance expectations in terms of having a conversation with them in terms of what are the performance expectations going forward. And of course, we identified the performance gaps, what are the hotspots, and these are clearly discussed with them. And then they then put that into their individual performance development planning going forward. And they also then begin to own the process of their own development. The second stage is to develop the blueprint. Your competency model are clear. Define leadership competency elements that are critical for each leadership stage. Develop the leadership development blueprint and how we are going to go about it. And of course, you plan the implementation. To establish the project team. For a lot of organizations, the members of the management team and HR leads are those that take responsibility for this. Sometimes the manpower planning and development manager is involved. The person that is in charge of succession planning and all that is involved in the project team. You need a project team that is looking at this so that it doesn't people don't just forget to do what needs to be done. Then you need to design your development learning solutions and plan the rollout. And when implementation is going on, ensure that all the learning sessions are delivered, assign individual and team to the all the projects that needs to be done, experiential learning and all that. Also, the individual and team coaching activities also needs to be set up and ensure it's going on. Then you also need to also provide mentoring support When you want to have an effective leadership pipeline development in place, you may need to actually need to also have a mentoring framework within the organization, where individuals that are currently performing in a role can then begin to mentor people who have been identified to be in the pipeline. We need to monitor the performance and also make improvements, monitor the individual and the team projects that you've given to them, evaluate performance and rectify weaknesses, and of course, final evaluations and plays are done when identified will become vacant, and when identified roles don't become vacant, so that they don't become restless in the system. There is need to explore career bridges where identified core roles are, particularly when identified core roles are not vacant. And the career bridges can be vertical or horizontal movements. There are also leadership pipeline development initiatives that can be taken. I will show you that in the next slides. Now, we have discovered that the 10 most effective processes for accelerating high potential development. And when you use each one in isolation, the percentages that I've put by each side is the kind of results that have been achieved in the past. But however, we always recommend a combination of this. So you are either sending somebody for stretchy assignment, executive coaching, action learning, degree feedback. In fact, this must be going on regularly for people that are on the leadership pipeline, so that we can remember to give them feedback on time. Job rotation is one of the things that can be explored. Mentoring, internal education is good. It's part of what GE did in terms of they had their academy. They have a very strong academy that's doing internal education. There is also cross-posting, international assignments. People are giving international assignments just while waiting, while they are being out and they are waiting, and to enable them to take more experience. You can also connect them to international networks, particularly for those organizations that have other subsidiaries. You can network people to their counterparts abroad, and those ones, they begin to gain knowledge from there. Then there's also external education in renowned institutions, such as when you send people to INSEAD, Harvard Business School, and all those schools, all the business schools. But unfortunately, for most organizations, the only way they develop their high potential is to send them to all these Ivy League schools. But unfortunately, when they come back with all the learnings that they've got, they still are not able to perform back at work, except it is well supported by all these other developmental initiatives that must be happening within the system. So if we look at leadership pipeline, therefore, I'm using GE now as an example. You can see the number of participants. We can see the number of people. There are 5,000 executives, 150,000 professionals. With this number of people, 290,000 employees in all, they are still able to do their leadership pipeline very effectively. So no one really has an excuse for not putting in place its own leadership pipeline framework and be very, very active in ensuring that that the leadership pipeline framework is in place and we're doing what we're supposed to be doing as HR people. In GE, for instance, the GE Global Learning covers 3 areas: leadership, functional skills, business knowledge. A lot of organizations don't do too much of business knowledge. We do leadership, we do functional skills, but not too much of leadership knowledge. Remember that for those that you are preparing for your leadership pipeline, they must also be knowledgeable in how to manage the business. GE spends close to $1.2 billion annually on training and identifying talents for themselves. In terms of leadership development, GE has evolved over time. They evolved in the 1950s from development to career to organization to meritocracy, and from 2000 they started looking more at growth, globalization, customers and governments, and growth values. And like I said the other time, their growth values, ladies and gentlemen, are this, and everybody breathes this within the system if you want to make career progress within the system. And this must be clear to everyone on our leadership pipeline that we identify and we put on our leadership pipeline, so that they can then begin to, on their own, begin to work towards it for themselves. And these are the kind of programs that they run. You can say, I said learning and do. Learning and do. They have professionals, foundations of leadership, emerging leaders program. They have the new managers development program, people leader program, the leadership development course in terms of individuals as a leader. So they have leadership essentials as well around the learn and do proficiency level. In terms of master and guide proficiency level, they have two programs. The senior leader program, which is advanced manager course, organizational learning. And of course, they have the executive leader, manager development course as a global operator. And last but not the least, they also have this senior executive leadership program, which is people at the shapers proficiency level are the ones that do this. Business management course, global strategist, executive development course, global entrepreneur, leadership innovation and growth, global growth. These are the leadership explorations. See, now you then wonder why an organization like GE has produced the CEOs for most of the Fortune 500 companies. It is a deliberate effort on their part on what they need to do to ensure that they have in place leaders that are strong enough to take over, to manage the future of the business. It was a deliberate thing. So based on this, how do you leverage the services of the Global Careers Company, CIPM, and HR support for your leadership development program? You can leverage on the extensive experience that we have already gained collectively, in this area, doing similar work for several organizations. Global career companies have been part of doing that for, helping to identify talent for lots of organizations. I remember when I was back in WAMCO, we used Global Careers Company extensively, and all the managers that we got through them they were outstanding. Now, we can also help you develop your competency framework. We can help you revise your performance management system, because from the performance rating and potential assessment that I talked about, I'm sure that some of us may actually need help in that area. We can help you train your line managers. You can do that. We can help support you in that area. We can also support you in terms of helping you to design and implement your independent development and assessment center, and also help your people come up with their individual development planning support. We can also assist you in from GCC, CIPM, HCP can assist with psychometrics assessments and also help you to provide the right feedback. There is a program, the external resource support can also come through GCC's Career in Africa initiative. And of course, their Africa Managers program is an excellent program that can help in helping you to refresh the leadership development pipeline pool. Because one of the things I recommend is that you can either do 80-20, 20 from within, but you must always refresh what you have with at least 20%. Maybe from outside, while 20% is developed in-house. We can also assist, I believe we can also leverage the robust world-class proven learning interventions that are fully aligned to respective leadership passages. These are the kind of things that I think that areas where I believe that the Global Career Company, CIPM, and the HCP can help you to do very, very quickly. So what have I covered in this session? I've talked about the 6 leadership passages, succession planning approaches, talent identification and selection process, the leadership pipeline development process. I've also talked about how you can provisional instructional approach, and I used GE's approach for as an example. And I talked about how GCC, CIPM, and HCP can support your leadership pipeline development initiatives. Don't forget, you need to analyze needs, you need to develop your blueprints, you need to plan implementation, You need to implement the plans. You need to monitor performance and improvement on an ongoing basis. That an individual is on the management target list doesn't mean he has to remain on the management target list forever. What keeps people on the management target list is performance and potentials. Performance in terms of results and demonstration of your values, and of course, potentials in terms of growth potential and promotable. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you do tomorrow what you did yesterday, your future is history. If you want to make real impact to your management, you need to begin to think very, very, very creatively on how you can introduce these concepts to your own management if you don't already have it in place. Or you can begin to fine-tune what you already have in place to help ensure that the organization has the right sets of leaders that can take over the future of the business. So if you do tomorrow what we've covered today, your future is historic, and I believe that your organizations will thank you for it. What do I expect you to do next? I expect us to have an individual action plans that you are going to implement within the next 3 months. What are the starting points? I just want you to think through this and decide on what you are going to do within the next 3 months. The first 1 month, the second month, and the third one, to ensure that what you've listened to today, you can quickly action it within your own organization. So, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for your time, and I hope this session has been able to help you. I would pause and take questions now, and the ones that we may not be able to answer because of time, you can always send a mail to me or send a mail to the Global Careers Company, and they would forward them to me, and I'll come back to you on it. Thank you very much.
Thank you ever so much, Innocent, for completing that presentation. Loads and loads of interesting things to pick up on and think more carefully about following that. We have a couple of questions, if you're keen to take them. So let me fire away with one from Mayoa. So Mayoa asks how to manage a situation where the CEO is a well-grounded person who constantly develops himself and meets the aspects of the strategic role that you've described in the slides, Innocent, but the business structure lacks the framework for developing the workforce to grow. So how would you approach that? The CEO seems to be doing all the right things, but the business hasn't got the framework to help everybody else in the workforce to grow.
Okay, where the CEO seems to be doing the right thing, but there is no framework in place, then the head of HR needs to approach the CEO and to just explain to the CEO that there are new ways of doing stuff, and there are more robust and comprehensive way of doing this, and we need to carry everybody along. Don't forget that when you are doing any leadership pipeline development thing, the line managers who are supposed to provide coaching, support, and all that, you need to carry them along. They also need to know how to support these individuals. So it cannot be just something that is in the head of the CEO alone. And that's the conversation that HR needs to have with the CEO. Let the CEO know that you want to help him achieve what is trying to achieve. For instance, the various assessment methodologies that are presented, you can see that from here, the CEO may just only be doing the performance assessments, not too much of potential. Even when they do the potential assessment, it's not going to be as robust it may not be as robust of what I've presented in here. But however, ladies and gentlemen, the head of HR needs to demonstrate that he or she is also grounded in this. And of course, that is the only way that the CEO can find the HR useful in this process, and then be able to get HR involved in the leadership pipeline development initiatives that he is trying to drive within the organization. Yeah. So HR also needs to demonstrate that knowledge very, very well, so that you can have credibility with the individual, with the CEO.
Okay. So maybe he's not doing as good a job as everybody thinks, and maybe HR needs to highlight that, shine a spotlight on it.
Exactly.
We've got another questions come through from Omakumbi, and this one is, so it's quite a practical question, how do you combine the performance and potential assessment cycle without disrupting the business?
It requires training of line managers very well in how to do performance and potentials assessments, and make it compulsory for all managers to do that every year. Yeah, you just do it with your annual performance appraisal sessions. It won't cause any disruption. You are not disrupting anything. If you are supposed to appraise an individual on performance and as well as appraise them on potentials, it won't disrupt the system. The only thing you can say is that, okay, if we now have a separate leadership pipeline program, will that cause animosity in the system? Well, it could cause animosity in the system, but you need to sell this to everyone as your leadership development, part of your leadership development framework for future leaders in the organization. Once people know that the future is extremely important to us, and we don't want to be caught napping. Yes. Everybody will imbibe it. In all the organizations where this is operating right now, the line managers are fully aware of it and they are using it. So it won't cause any disruption. In fact, it will reinforce more confidence in the organization. And before you know it, it will rev up performance of people, because people will want to get into your leadership pipeline list going forward, and that will just shoot up performance and potentials, and people will just begin to demonstrate the values. But if you don't show that values is important to you, that is only performance, people will just focus only on performance. They are not demonstrating values. They are not demonstrating the right behaviors and all that. So I do not see situations where it will cause too much. It will cause disruption in the system. Rather, it would help the system understand that we have a defined framework in place and we are following it. Remember that for each critical position, I forgot to say that you must have minimum of 3 individuals that you are preparing at any point in time for each of your critical roles. Yeah.
Okay.
You know whether that answers your question.
Go ahead, Vincent. Sorry, we cut you off there.
Yeah, I said I don't know whether that sufficiently answers the question.
I think so. I mean, by all means, Omakumbi, if you've got a kind of follow-up, just ask it now. But I think it's good to bear in mind, if we're looking at this as a potential disruptor of business, this is a critical piece of the business, and maybe we're not giving it the complete sort of weight it deserves. Probably the other thing I'd mention, just because there's some work we do with Willis Towers Watson, is that there are smarter tools to enable assessments. So we're not necessarily talking a pen and paper assessment or consultants running around your business doing work. This is something that we can do smartly as well, and reduce the time it's going to take to complete. Critically, I think, as you say, it's the importance. This is foundational. So don't get this right, and then let's see the disruption that causes. So we have a couple more questions just over here. I think one question that someone sent in around the data you presented on the most effective types of training. I've seen, this is from the person writing the question, I've seen this type of data before, and I've also seen data on what are the types of training that people in the organization most want to receive. And the two contradict each other. So why is it that the most effective training, i.e. on-the-job training, is the training people are least interested in, and the most interesting training for people, i.e. external courses, is the least effective? Do you have a perspective on that, Innocent?
Yeah, I do not see a complete disconnect, because if you see what is here, you see that there is internal education, there is also external education, which is going for courses outside. More often than not, why people want to go outside for courses is that, number one, to be able to cross-fertilize ideas. Sometimes some people just want to get off work, which is fine. But the truth is this: if you do an assessment of the degree of improvement in performance that people bring back to their job when you only send them for external trainings, you will see that it's very, very limited. Sometimes they go to learn processes and systems that are not available locally. They learn with methodologies that are not available locally. They learn things that they cannot actually implement in their workplaces. And that's why you must do a mixture. It's always good to do a mixture. Let it be a mixture of everything. For instance, stretchy assignments, like I said, executive coaching, action learning. This is also like internal training or external, more of internal training. On-the-job training must be ongoing. 360-degree feedback must be there. So it's a combination, including job rotation, rotating people from jobs, so that they don't become they don't just shut down after some time. It's crazy for someone to be on a job for 5-10 years doing the same job. So job rotation is there. So it's a combination. It's always good to look for a combination of training training interventions for your high potentials. Yeah.
Okay, and we've just got one final question, I think. If anybody's got another question and wants to ask it, please do that now, because we are going to be closing off the session as soon as we run out of questions. But I think now we've got 2 more. So just quickly, could you just give us a bit more of a rundown on what action learning is all about? So just a general kind of walk through action learning for people.
Yeah, action learning. Action learning is it's more like when individuals are you're putting individuals on like projects too. You're giving them assignments where you are asking them to come back and give they are coming back to make presentations to the organization. The things they are learning are actually directly related to the kind of job they are doing. Those are kind of action learning. That it's not theory, it's not just theory, it's not concept clarification, it's not too much of high, it's something that they are dealing with, giving them kind of work assignments where they have opportunities to learn. Managing certain projects, for instance, like there could be action learning opportunities, putting them in what do you call it? Acting capacities. You are learning on the job. So action learning is things that directly has to do with what the individual will be doing in the future. So it's action oriented. It's not too much theoretical oriented.
Okay. So I guess one final question then, which is around, I guess this is an interesting one, considering the model that you've proposed and how that fits into big companies versus small companies, how it crosses generations, and how it will adapt to the changing world of work. So that's the context of this question, which someone sent in, and it says, measuring individuals across sort of 3 dimensions of competencies makes sense, but what about people who have got great strength in 1 or 2 areas, and then I guess presumably weaknesses in another one? How can you deal with these people as part of leadership potential? Are they lost causes, or will you find a role for these people? I guess maybe they're getting at kind of high functioning tech types with real strong competency in one area, but maybe I guess it's a bit stereotypical to say great competency, not great personal skills. How do you deal with someone like that?
Okay. Now, once people have been sent for assessment center, the essence really is to enable you identify their strengths, identify areas of development, recommend learning interventions. And the various learning interventions, like I talked about, are things I showed you the other time. Now, what do we then do where for areas of development? You know, when you have people in the leadership pipeline, for some of them, they may not, in fact, for all of them, they are not in that role exactly, which simply means that there is time. Now, for this time, what you then do is to then focus them on what I call this here. Identify the performance issues, clarify high performance expectations, identify where the gaps are, and consciously bring it to the attention of the individuals and give them the time frame within which this gap must be closed, should be closed, so that they can become available or they can be considered when the position they've been identified for becomes available, or when there is opportunity for cross-posting, cross-functional responsibilities. So once we've identified this, where the gaps are, is to bring their attention to it and let them know they need to work on it and put in place a personal development plan for them. And then now the individual then begin to work with HR to ensure that their individual development planning interventions are followed through and completed. So they are the ones that will be running after HR to say, come, this learning intervention or this development intervention has been identified for me, please. In fact, they will then be driving it themselves to make sure it happens, rather than how it is done right now, where sometimes people just wait till when HR is asking them for an intervention. In fact, their mentors, they will be having constant engagement with their mentors and be engaging their mentors on their developmental interventions, areas where they need to be developed. So at a conscious level, they begin to develop those competencies until when the time comes when the position now becomes available, or they are being considered for any other within the key positions or within the organization, whether it's a key position or it's not a key position. So that's the way I would that's my own that's my answer to that question from my own from based on some of the experience that I've had in this area.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I think that concludes the questions that we've got.
But please note that individuals don't remain on your leadership pipeline for life. What keeps them on your leadership pipeline is their performance continued. They must sustain their performance in terms of their job goals. They must also sustain demonstration of the values, their skills and behaviors and values. And of course, their potentials too, their potential assessment ratings must also be relatively good for them to remain on the management target list. So every 6 months, the management team would sit down to actually review your leadership pipeline list, and at the end of the year, every 6 months they do it just to be able to assess the state of health of a leadership pipeline, to see if new people need to be brought into the leadership pipeline, and to also be able to determine who may drop out of the leadership pipeline. You don't ever make promises that they are going to remain on the leadership pipeline for life. You let them know what keeps you on the leadership pipeline is your continued performance and potentials assessment, and your destiny is in your hand. That's just the bottom line. Thank you.
Okay, good lesson for everybody to finish on as well, I guess, for your personal experiences as well as the people that you're managing. So thank you very, very much, Innocent, for the input today, for completing the presentation and taking the time to answer those questions. Thank you, everybody who attended and everybody who posed questions. It's great to continue this discussion, and if you are interested in continuing the discussion even further, you can join the Talent Agenda Series community online for free, where you can access both the slides for this presentation and discussion forums where you can follow up with questions and pick the brains of people like you who are Africa's HR leaders, and see if by working together we can solve more problems. So thank you again, everybody. Thank you, especially Innocent. Remember to go and check out Innocent's company, Human Capital Partners, if you have got any needs where you feel he could help. And it's a big thank you from us at the Talent Agenda series. We'll see you again soon with another webinar, or we'll see you at a conference. And do check out the community, which we'll send a link out for following this presentation. Okay, have a great rest of the day, everybody. All the best from us here at GCC, and bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye. Bye-bye, everyone.